We're very happy with what we've achieved in the African continent, in East Africa. So now is the time to let that grow on its own. Of course we'll support it, of course we'll hold hands. This is not an adult yet ready to leave home, but it's close. It's time to give responsibility to the sharing economy, to the people who know how to run the sharing economy, to grow that sharing economy. We've now seen, and you're about to see on WNT Scan over the next weeks and months, the impact that we've had in Pakistan. Pakistan is amazing because we've taken the same approach that we took in Zanzibar, minus the capex and the opex. We don't have a single truck, we don't have a single employee, we don't have anything going on in Pakistan, but we have a backhaul provider who is then deploying infrastructure, the same infrastructure that's been deployed in Zanzibar. So now the focus for the next year, maybe 2 years, will be the United States of America. The opportunity here is absolutely ripe. There is 10% of the population unconnected. There is many underserved, and there's many feeling the impact of a lack of privacy from the mobile network operator.
What is going on, Ada Nation? Fareed here, checking in from day 2 of Rare Evo taking place in Denver, Colorado at the Gaylord Rockies Resort. Sitting to my left is going to be none other than the man himself, Mickey Watkins, head chief of World Mobile. Mickey, how are you doing?
Pleasure, and it's good to be actually in your physical presence today. Usually we speak online, which is I'm a very big advocate of course, the opportunity the internet brings. But I've got to say, to be able to smell each other and give each other a fist bump is always a pleasure.
Likewise, and it's been an amazing experience so far hanging out with you and the World Mobile team.
Thank you very much.
And what I want to do is just chat a little bit about just that, World Mobile. You had a speech yesterday touching on everything that you guys are doing, but to have you here now, I want to jump into some of the nitty-gritty and some of the details surrounding your latest announcement. So I know that I've covered your channel, or your project, here on my channel previously, but do you mind just giving us a brief overview of what World Mobile is? And then we're going to jump into all the latest or most recent announcements.
Sure, LFG, as they say in the community. So World Mobile is a new economic model to incentivize people to put up infrastructure where there isn't any infrastructure. Maybe people don't know how big that problem is, but 2.7 billion people around the planet are totally unconnected. The largest continent for the unconnected is actually Africa. That's where we started, that's where the network was born, but we've since moved into Asia, into Pakistan, and now we're moving into the United States of America. The United States of America is about 10% of the population, and it's growing, that are unconnected, and many percent of the population that are underserved by traditional incumbents.
Thank you for that brief and quick intro as to what World Mobile is doing. Now, you just touched on US, right? You guys have already kicked operations off in Zanzibar. You guys are expanding over into Pakistan, but let's touch a little bit on the US side of things. Yesterday, you guys had a demo, and I believe the van is actually still outside right now.
I'm going to take you on a tour of the van in a minute.
I would love to see that, but let's talk a little bit about your eSIM and how you guys are expanding and bringing World Mobile to the United States.
So the eSIM is an add-on to the World Mobile Network, a very important add-on, an add-on that anybody can use. You don't need to understand blockchain, you don't need to understand crypto. You scan a QR code from our website or from a partner, then you will, on your iPhone or a compatible Android phone, from iPhone 11 onwards, and for the last 3 or 4 years for Android, you'll be able to jump onto the network within about 30 seconds, wherever you are. The beauty of the eSIM is it works locally, it works regionally, and it works internationally. We have deals with around 150 mobile network operators that when you're not on our native infrastructure, and I can take you to the stall in a minute and to the van to see the native infrastructure, then you'll jump onto a partner network. A partner network then gives you the ability to roam the entire world with just one SIM.
And just for the viewers who are watching this, because this was a piece of news for me, I have a physical SIM in my phone right now, in my iPhone. Will that be the case with an eSIM?
Don't quote me, but I do believe that in this next release of the iPhone or the following release, there will be no physical SIM slot anymore. I think that they also believe that eSIM is the way forward. The eSIM is a much more efficient and effective way. And if you talk about sustainability, printing a card, then printing the metal on that card, and then sending it out from the distribution center to the shop, who then sends it out to you, it's a process. It's a long process. Why would you have that process in place when you can literally scan a QR code, the phones that work and are functional for eSIMs, and you're online?
That is huge. Again, taking one piece of hardware out of the end user's mind, right? One less thing for them to worry about. And one thing that I really like about what you mentioned earlier in your presentation was that, you guys are going to have partners to where if I'm not covered with my eSIM, that I will then be able to get coverage from those partners. Can you maybe elaborate on how that's going to work?
Many of us probably heard of a private 5G network. It was a big buzzwords over the last couple of years or so for this. But private network is a private network. Sure, it keeps your privacy to a certain level, but it also is very restricted to when you leave that private network, you've got to have another SIM inside your telephone to be able to continue your service. So if it's set up in a factory or set up in your home, you've got to have 2 SIMs. That's possible, no problems, but it just doesn't make so much sense to us. It made sense to us that you have this one seamless experience. You join your home network, your native infrastructure, or an air node around, and when you're not, you're then on a different person's network. This has its complexities, not for us, but when we talk about privacy, it's not as private on other people's network as it is on our network, but with Operation Air Node, due to launch very soon, we expect our network footprint to massively expand.
That is huge, and what that reminds me of is how seamless Wi-Fi connection and Wi-Fi integration is. You know, when I'm at my house, I can then jump on my Wi-Fi, I can save my data plan or my data from my service provider, but then when I go to my job, it seamlessly connects, right, whenever there's a new Wi-Fi station or a new Wi-Fi hotspot available. So it sounds like that's going to kind of function in a similar way. Is that accurate?
Very similar, but Wi-Fi is beautiful. I've been into Wi-Fi for a long time, ever since its invention. And it's just getting better and better. But what it lacks is the same properties as cell. Cell allows you to go at 100 miles an hour. Not that you should be driving at 100 miles an hour, but it allows you to be on a train at 100 miles an hour and to easily hand off to each cell site that there is. Wi-Fi, the handoff process is very different. You know, anywhere between 5 to 20 seconds, where you lose connectivity, you'll search, and then it will automatically reconnect. But Wi-Fi has its beauty. Its throughput is absolutely massive, and it has its purpose. You know, in many of the African continent, in East Africa, in the countries that we're in those villages or those towns, Wi-Fi serves a fantastic purpose because it works with every phone. It's backwards compatible. But it's not the solution only. The real solution, we think, is having an eSIM that can connect to the Wi-Fi and connect to the cellular network seamlessly, utilizing the benefits of both.
That's huge. Double duty.
Yes.
Double duty. Okay. Any closing thoughts or remarks that you want to add with respect to the eSIMs?
eSIM is the future. We're very aware of it. I think Apple are very aware of it. Many others are very aware of it. And I think over the next 2 to 3 to 4 years, it'll be very hard pressed to find a telephone that doesn't have an eSIM.
And I think you guys will be well positioned to be early adopters of this eSIM model. Again, you guys are getting ahead of the curve and looking into this new technology.
Absolutely.
On that note, let's go ahead and just pivot a little bit. So that's going to wrap it up there for some of the chat surrounding eSIMs. Let's move into the progress that has been made with the World Mobile Global app. You guys initially kicked off in Australia, well, in Zanzibar, I take that back, and then you expanded over into Australia.
Sure.
And then most recently, the beta was launched in the United States. If I'm not mistaken, it's now available to the general public. You know, so how does that make you feel, and what progress has been made? I think there was a new release that was just made.
It's going to get better and better. It isn't an infinite development process. What we are building is APIs and SDK toolkit to allow other developers to come and build into the mobile application, their DApps, their products. But initially, as World Mobile, we need to be the ones responsible for showing what can be done and what's used. The application is so important. Why is it important? Because you want to onboard lots of people to blockchain, to crypto, but those people shouldn't need to know how to use crypto in the same way now, to download MetaMask, to do this, to do that, to jump through this hoop, to jump over to there, to find themselves potentially not secure by the actions that they're making, or find themselves frustrated. So the mobile application, as you download it, you install it, you automatically assign a DID seamlessly. You automatically, all the actions that happen on your phone from that moment onwards, the bits that are stored on-chain automatically happen. You don't need to do anything. You have a search function that you'll be able to say, okay, what happened to my data? What did I do? How many top-ups did I make? That will all be pulled off of on-chain, and that information will be then given to you. So we've kind of made the application the easy onboarding, and I think that is probably what a lot of crypto is lacking. And whilst we do like jumping through hoops and we do like challenges, if you want to get 100 million users, 500 million users, 1 billion users to be able to use blockchain technology, then you've got to have something very similar to what we're building to make it a very seamless and easy process.
And what I really like about your app is that it's really all-encompassing. It also hosts a wallet, like you said, Scan for Points, which I know you guys are going to be trying to figure out a new name for that.
Yes.
But then there's also access to third-party services, right? And I recently shot a video on my channel, and when I tell you, I felt like there was an endless scroll of providers. Microsoft, Xbox, Netflix, and so many platforms. So it seems like, this is going to be an app where you can come in there, interact with World Mobile, but you're going to have everything else that you need from, I guess, within the World Mobile ecosystem, all at your fingertips.
That's the idea, right? And with Scan for Points, again, you're right, there's a name change coming for that. But with many of the services, the cashback. So if you stake your World Mobile tokens, and we're actually looking at staking other tokens as well, because it's a multi-chain wallet, you'll then be eligible for, if you imagine the bronze, the silver, the gold, and the platinum, you'll be eligible to be able to have further discounts on the network or earn points on the network. Now, what we're doing differently than anybody else is usually networks say, okay, well, you can then use your points against your network usage. So we believe that that's a really good model as well. But what happens if you don't want to use it against the network's usage? What happens if you want to buy a PlayStation 5 voucher? What happens if you want to buy a pets.com voucher? What happens if you want to be able to buy a different network voucher, but then you accrue these points, these credits, and then you're able to buy those to subsidize your Spotify, to subsidize your Netflix, to subsidize your local streaming platform, whatever it is. So we truly believe in that, and we're working on bringing a lot of partners into this marketplace. We're not the first to do this. If you look at companies like BitRefill, they've kind of made the headway. They're a huge company with huge revenues. But we also believe that we can potentially have a lot of people utilize our services, buy these services, and of course, all those value-added services come back into the ecosystem. So the margins that we're making then get shared between the EarthNode operators who are hosting those services.
That is new news to me. I was not aware of that.
Yeah.
So again, really providing an all-encompassing tool in a platform to interact with World Mobile.
And the example of what people can do on World Mobile, and eventually, I always say this, and together we're unstoppable, right? So when developers jump into the ecosystem and they realize that the tools that they can use to build, they can start making their offerings to real world people, not just people who are based in crypto, not just people who are based in blockchain or have a fascination or a maxis or have intrigue or curiosity, but actually normal people. And this is the big problem with blockchain right now. How do you reach those normal people? Well, telecoms is the easiest way. People buy data, they use services, they watch things on their telephone. It's become the thing in our pocket that we function with. So we believe that that's the true way to receive mass adoption.
I couldn't agree with you more. It's a tried and tested industry. And to your point about how do we tap into these regular people or Web 2 platforms, we have Microsoft here, we've got Blizzard here, and so that was really fascinating for me to hear that we're getting some of these bigger brands now attending crypto-specific conferences. We're now starting to even see more job openings for crypto-related positions or crypto-related work, which I think is a really good piece of information in the bear market, right? It shows that these platforms are open to adopting crypto, but I think it has to be done the right way, and I think that's what World Mobile is doing.
We're meeting the builders now, right? We're meeting the people that in the bear market. In the bull market, you've got the taxi drivers. Nothing against taxi drivers, but you've got the taxi drivers saying, let's buy this coin, let's do that, and it's usually the signal. That's what people say. But it's these moments in the bear market when you see the Microsofts, the Activisions, the Blizzards, the Cornucopiases, the Zengates, the people of this world that are really making an effort to try and create something. But again, maybe there's a missing piece, and that missing piece is ease, is use, right? Is having people to be able to seamlessly function and utilize blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies without having to learn too much.
Yeah, I think abstraction of the low-level code is something that has really been on my mind. I spoke with Marvin Burton, who's the head of Maestro, which is basically building an infrastructure platform for Cardano builders, right, to remove that layer of complexity, which I think really hinders a lot of adoption and a lot of ideas coming to fruition from regular people like myself, right, who aren't so technical, to being able to contribute to something like Cardano. So I think as we grow, that will inevitably be solved. It just takes time.
I think you're doing yourself an injustice there. I've seen your learning curve has gone through the roof, to the moon and beyond. But yeah, I tend to agree.
I am humbled by that. I do appreciate that, Mickey. Let's keep things moving along. I know you've got some people waiting for you to chat a little bit more about what you're doing and what you're building here at Rare Evo. So the next thing I want to jump into is going to be surrounding a recent partnership with an AI platform building on Cardano that's going to be SingularityNet.
Yes.
Do you mind speaking about how this relationship came along, and then what World Mobile will be able to kind of get out of it, as well as SingularityNet, because it's not going to be a one-sided partnership. But can you speak a little bit about, why SingularityNet and why the focus on AI?
Sure. I mean, first thing I should say is PPE, Partners Profit Execution, right? Very important. To reinvent the wheel at all times is not sensible. Sometimes you need to, but that's not reinventing the wheel, that's creating what you need. With the partnership with Singularity, I know there's a lot of FUD about Singularity in the different communities as well, but actually from what we've seen and what we've experienced, they're very much supporting us and very much helping us. Ben is a super smart guy. For us to be able to utilize their technology, for example, we've now created for ourselves over the last year an AI automation voice channel. So you can call up and you can say, my network signal is blinking. The AI bot will then understand, okay, you need to do this and you need to do that, and she will speak to you or he will speak to you, depending on your preference, and it help you through this process. This is huge because this allows us to solve many problems for hundreds of thousands and millions and then hundreds of millions of users in a way that we would normally have to have 20,000, 10,000 customer support spread around the world. Typically, people spread them in regions where they have networks. So you have Mexico and the Spanish-speaking regions, and they have a call center over there. Then you have a call center in the US, or you have a call center in India. And this is a huge capex and a huge opex for a company to set up. So first of all, being able to leverage the assets that they've got with what we have already built is really important. Second of all, which I think is maybe the most meaningful, is what we're working on right now, which is blockchain-based loans. Blockchain-based loans initially will offer to our network in East Africa. So we have around 25,000 users that are paying. So as an example, what can happen is that we'll see a user that pays all the time, has been paying, but we notice that for every 2 months, for the last week of that month, that user's not online. So right now, because we're small enough, we can see that, right? But as we grow bigger, we want to know why that user isn't online. Is it because they went on holiday? Is it because they're sleeping? Is it because they wanted some private time? Often it's not. Often it's because they run out of the financial means on that last 1 week of the month in order to be able to connect to the internet and to buy their data. So for us to be able to say, hey, look, for a 2% or 5% fee, we'll loan you that data, is a wonderful thing for those users. We can then score them with their permission, with their DID, with them giving us the rights to be able to use that information. We can't use it without their rights, and that's very important to remember, and we can talk about that on another show about privacy. But now we can score them and say, okay, you're a really good paying user. You obviously don't get paid or you've run out of money at this time of the month, but then you top up 3 days later or 7 days later, let's give you 1.5 gigabytes. Right? And we'll give you 1.5 gigabytes at a 5% cost. So when you top up, you'll then lose 5% of your top up. And then, of course, this creates very happy environment for the user because they're online and they can still continue their service online, and a very happy environment for the ecosystem because the ecosystem is able to then generate a slightly more funds, which then get split between the air nodes down to the earth nodes and follows this virtuous cycle.
So I have to answer to both of the points that you mentioned. Number one, I think using AI and a trained language model to answer calls, 100% right. It will save time and effort and resources on your end. So I think...
And attitude. This is really important, right? So call centers, companies are trying to reduce costs consistently. So they've got people that are overworked. They've got people who maybe don't want to particularly be in that job. As a company, as a brand, you want someone to come off of the call as efficiently, as fast as possible, and to have the best experience possible and to have solved their problem. Now, if they can't solve their problem, we do have the redundancy of people to be able to say, okay, you couldn't solve the problem, you're now going to go speak to a live non-AI operator, okay? But we massively reduce the work flow for those operators so that they can manage it rather than having to meet their KPIs of you've got to keep a customer offline on the call for a maximum of 10 minutes, otherwise you're breaking your KPIs, you're breaking the performance indicators. So then people are under huge amounts of pressure, so then the customer doesn't actually get what they need, or the phone call gets hung up, the customer ends up swearing at the customer relations person, the customer relations person takes offense, and actually all of this could be solved really quickly via automation and via AI.
What a wonderful point that didn't even cross my mind, right? I was just thinking from the financial aspect of things, but that is a really great point. It takes some of the pressure from the call operators, right, off of them. So really interesting to hear that, and I'm excited to potentially be able to test that, right? I'm not sure how you guys are training that model.
I'll take you to test it in a minute.
That would be so awesome, Mickey. Again, thank you for all of this information. And I really think that's what sets you apart from some of the other CEOs that I've met, right? Not a tag on anybody else, but the friendliness and the openness that you have, I think is what draws so many people to you. You know, I kept hearing one message being reiterated anytime that I brought your name up against or with any other Earth node operator. And it was your transparency and your dedication and your openness. You know, so I want to commend you for that as well. I'd be more than happy to take a look at that here with you in just a second. Now, back to the other point, you had mentioned, you know, the loans. I completely misunderstood how that was going to happen. You know, I was thinking you guys were actually going to be loaning out funds to the users. But if I understand it correctly, you guys are going to be providing them with data at a minor fee, right, to keep them on the network and to keep them going, right? And so that's how the lending is coming. It's not necessarily a micro loan or something like that where you're actually providing them funds, you're providing them data.
To stay connected, I'm not going to say that eventually we or the World Mobile Network won't offer microloans, but I think it's a very interesting, potentially dangerous cycle. Giving out loans is something that I don't believe in. Although I realize that people should have access to that. Whether World Mobile should be the ones to do that is another story. However, as we further develop and as we create the tools, maybe other services will come in and offer micro loans. But what we're seeing right now is they're based on greed, right? And we are not looking to create extra revenue from a greed factor for our network. If there's something fair that we can work out, then potentially we can. And AI is going to help us to do that, right? AI is going to help us to see where the biggest opportunity is, where you don't actually persecute the end user. And loans, this is personal to me, so this is not me speaking for World Mobile, but loans usually is a persecution of the end user, right? Whether that's a mortgage, whether that's something else. And people do need those, but who am I to judge who needs that? So then AI can judge very well who needs that and who can afford that and at which percentage they can afford to pay back. So maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the line, this will be something that's key or tools that people will use to offer others on the World Mobile Network. But right now, not looking to loan people funds.
Endless possibilities when it comes to AI and how it can be used not only for just the general public, but to fit World Mobile's vision and mission. Let's keep things moving along, Mickey. Now, you guys have recently had a few partnerships, right? One that I recently also covered, in addition to the partnership with SingularityNet, was the one with the Conflux network. Do you mind touching on why Conflux and where you see this potential partnership taking you and the World Mobile team?
With Aya, we want to work with as many verifiable and proper chains that there are. You touched on something earlier on. Companies like Google, like Facebook, like Microsoft, like the 750 mobile network operators around the world, have left 2.7 billion people offline. They have tried and spent billions and billions, tens of billions of dollars, potentially even hundreds of $billions dollars, trying to connect the unconnected and serve the underserved. Alone, they can't do it. So as a community, in this whole blockchain space, one thing that unites us is to, one, rid the world of tyranny, and two, to get mass adoption. If you work with only a small sector of a community or one community, you're ostracizing everybody else from not being able to be in this sharing economy. And again, I refer to Facebook, Microsoft, and Google, who are amazing, and we work with all of them, have open relationships, do different projects. They haven't been able to fix this. It's not just money.
Right.
It's the people. So what we have here primed in the crypto communities is people who all want to make a change. Sure, we've got speculators, sure, we've got people who are only there to care about the cash. But actually, if you dig down deep and you sit and you walk around here, people want to make a change. They want to make a difference. So being open to all these different chains, for them to be able to run Earth nodes, for them to be able to stake on an Earth node that's running on Cardano because they believe the mission, but to be able to stake natively in a token from their own chain, all of a sudden wipes out the maximalism. So this is a strategic play, right, that makes a lot of sense towards our mission of connecting the unconnected and having a truly global sharing economy. That's super important. But secondly, their technology is awesome. I really like the way that they've built their technology. It's a hybrid between proof of work and proof of stake. I haven't seen that very often, and I haven't seen such a good implementation. And then thirdly, access to the Asian markets, super important, right? Growing market, huge population, again, to grow the sharing economy. But what really intrigued us was their care for Africa. They're very big in Nigeria. But ultimately, as a telecom guy, I wanted to see what the blockchain SIM side of stuff was. Now, They're working on a physical blockchain SIM. We don't believe in physical SIMs. We believe the future is eSIMs, as we discussed earlier on this call. On this session, sorry, is usually a call. And this physical, not in the metaverse, we discussed it in the real verse. So for us to be able to share ideas, share our concepts, work with them on a weekly basis, see what they're doing, and then be able to offer them potentially an upgrade to what they're doing, and to take some of their technology, because we have quite a few patents in the space as well, makes sense. You need to get people's heads together, and you need to get people that are thinking in a very similar way in order to be able to further advance and evolve an industry. Telecoms, again, has left 2.7 billion people offline, and multiple billions of people, including you and me, underserved. And we're not talking about the privacy factor. So being able to support that industry, grow that industry, and make a dent in bringing those people online and bridging the digital divide, super important. And they're like-minded, and there's not many people in the space at the moment that are focusing or concentrating on telecom.
Happy to hear that, and I think one thing that you mentioned there was potential expansion within the Asian region, which really plays into your global vision. Now, to add to that, you guys have also expanded recently onto Ethereum as well as BNB. Do you mind maybe touching on why those particular chains were selected?
Absolutely. Again, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, the biggest companies in the world have, outside of the telecom companies, have made huge efforts to connect the unconnected. Facebook's with the Aquila, Google with initially their Leos, and they brought their Leos down to become Loon, and then Loon dismantled Loon, and they weren't successful in solving this problem. Why weren't they successful in solving this problem? Because it's not money alone, it's community. That's what we believe. It's a sharing economy. So having somebody who's on Ethereum is really important, as it's a huge ecosystem, to be able to participate in the sharing economy. Ethereum is great for multiple different things. Cardano is great for multiple different things. Conflux is great for multiple different things. Binance's BNB chain is great for multiple different things. And they all have their benefits and they all have their downfalls. So what we wanted to do is create an ecosystem where it didn't matter if you're on Ethereum. You didn't need to go and sell your Ethereum for USDC, buy Cardano on a centralized exchange, go to a centralized exchange, then go to a decentralized exchange, buy World Mobile token, and follow this whole process. We wanted people to be able to natively stake on their own chain in a native World Mobile token for them to be able to actually be a participant in the sharing economy, lowering the barrier to entry and the obstacles and the maximalism that would happen. So very important for us, not just for the technology, but also for the community. The community, we all share one thing in common, I believe. Okay, maybe some of us are only here for the cash, but most of us share this belief that mass adoption, the blockchain technology, the transparency can help rid this world of some level of tyranny or injustice. And I believe that every chain has at the core that feeling. You need to bring everybody together. So not only the technology, but also the communities. Really important, especially when you're trying to connect 2.7 billion people and you're trying to serve 2 billion people that are underserved. And then beyond that, the whole privacy factor, super, super important. It's not right that our mobile network operators, that our ISPs, know, because they provide the internet to our house that we pay for, know when we wake up, when we go to sleep, who comes to our house, who leaves our house, when we go to the bathroom, what we do. It's not correct. So that's kind of phase 3 of World Mobile, the privacy aspect, which is where I first started. But the easiest way to bring that privacy aspect is through communications, telecom.
As you mentioned earlier, I would love to have you on for an additional chat, right, surrounding privacy alone. I think we could have an entire conversation based on just that topic. Yeah. Now, to kind of touch on some of the points that you mentioned earlier, I think expanding into additional networks is a win-win, right? People can now get frictionless access to World Mobile. As you mentioned, they can also begin staking and supporting the project. And it's also a win-win on the other side for World Mobile, because you guys are now being able to tap into a new audience, right, which is outside of the ecosystem. And
to become part of the sharing economy, right, to secure the network, to participate, to run an Earth node on a chain that they are a maximalist for, that they believe is the superior chain, but all contributing towards connecting the unconnected.
Right, and I think that should be the key point to take away there, is that all of this is for a unified vision. Just like, we're all here within Cardano, there might be people that are within Ethereum, etc. While we might have our own walls between us, we all have the unified goal, which is global crypto adoption, right? So I think you guys are trying to bridge those gaps between the different ecosystems, and this is just the beginning with the expansion in partnership with Conflux, as well as the expansion and adoption of BNB and Ethereum. So I'm excited to hear that. And as we get ready to close this out, Mickey, I usually like to ask my guests here, what can we expect from a project like World Mobile in the next year or the next 5 years? Where do you see World Mobile going in the near future?
We're very happy with what we've achieved in the African continent, in East Africa. So now is the time to let that grow on its own. Of course we'll support it, of course we'll hold hands. This is not an adult yet ready to leave home, but it's close. It's time to give responsibility to the sharing economy, to the people who know how to run the sharing economy, to grow that sharing economy. We've now seen, and you're about to see on WNT Scan over the next weeks and months, the impact that we've had in Pakistan. Pakistan is amazing because we've taken the same approach that we took in Zanzibar, minus the capex and the opex. We don't have a single truck, we don't have a single employee, we don't have anything going on in Pakistan, but we have a backhaul provider who is then deploying infrastructure, the same infrastructure that's been deployed in Zanzibar. So now the focus for the next year, maybe 2 years, will be the United States of America. The opportunity here is absolutely ripe. There is 10% of the population unconnected. There is many underserved, and there's many feeling the impact of a lack of privacy from the mobile network operator. So eSIM distribution, both locally, regionally, and internationally, is something that you'll be seeing grow. And beyond that, Operation Airnode, which is a very, very, very important factor of World Mobile, which is where we released the first set of air nodes here in the United States of America to serve people either to fix their own problem or to benefit from problems that exist with the incumbents today, and to be able to provide connectivity to tourists or local people and have them use the network, and they get paid for the network, which then filters down from the air nodes into the ecosystem, down to the earth nodes who process all of the information that happens there from the traffic that runs through the network. So that's a major focus. And I think once we've smashed here, we probably would have validated all of our assumptions. And that's how I work. You validate an assumption. So you have an assumption. I have clever people on my team, probably far cleverer than I am, and we sit there and we say, okay, this is an assumption. They say, oh no, well, I'm not sure. Or, oh yes, that sounds great. But that's our opinion. That's very subjective. And to be fair to us, we've got most of our assumptions right. But you can't just assume that your assumptions are going to be right because you think you're clever. You've got to validate those. So the last 2, 3, 4 years have been about validating an aerostat. Can we get longer range? Validating, can we get a community in East Africa to buy a very cheap air node and to put that up, to power it, to look after it, and to get people online? Can we get a sales team that are inspired by a commission to be able to go and get customers onto the network? Assumption after assumption after assumption. Can we get a radio that can go 5 times longer than the industry standard? And can we build that pretty cheaply? And can we work with off-the-shelf providers and make a new type of antenna to work with their existing infrastructure? Yes. So all of these assumptions are validated, and now it's about validating the assumption in the United States of America. And then I think that's it. I think the explosive growth happens. I think that people start to join the network. I think the movement really takes shape. And a network run by the people, for the people, ready to connect everyone, everywhere. Again, first the unconnected, then the underserved, and then those of us that don't realize in the quest to be connected that we've given up our human rights. And that's the final stage of World Mobile. And then Mickey Watkins, Mr. T, can sit back, and it won't be me that's pushing the network to grow. It will be the people who are powering the network to push the network to grow. And that's the most important thing. Alone, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, and the countless bodies, the 750 mobile network operators, doesn't matter how much money they're willing to invest, they've left half the world offline.
You're an amazing speaker, first and foremost.
Thank you very much.
And you have started a mission that is going to be bigger than yourself, sooner or later. And I am happy to be a contributor, and an early adopter of what you guys are building. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got Mickey Watkins here, connecting the unconnected, serving the underserved, and really starting off an economy that everybody and anybody can contribute to. And so if you guys want more information surrounding what World Mobile is building and bringing not only to Cardano, but to multiple networks, make sure to go ahead and check out all the links that I'm going to be leaving down in the comment section or in the description here for today's video. If you guys have any questions for myself or Mickey, go ahead and leave them down in the comments. And as always, we'll catch you guys in the next video. Thank you, Mickey.
Thank you. Cheers.